Divorce me because I don't want to take care of you. I want to be free.
My husband started saying such things as soon as I became confined to a wheelchair. I never thought he would say that to me after being together for over 40 years. He is a stubborn husband, and I have many complaints about him. But we have been together for more than 40 years, and I thought of him as an important family member in some way. I never thought he would said that. One day it will be too late for him to regret giving up good wife who does everything for him. My name is Emily. I'm 67 years old, and I'm worried about my cracked heels, so I bought some exfoliating products and found that they were even more cracked than before. I wish I could have skin as soft as a baby's. I wonder if it's too hard at my age. No, I'm sure I'll be fine because my heart is still full of vitality. I can say now that I have a vibrant heart, but I used to have a very wild heart. That was about 3 years ago. I was struggling with my relationship with my husband, Michael. It had been several years since we started living on our pension after retirement. While college graduates abound, my husband, a high school graduate working as a general manager of a major construction company, began to act like the boss at home, perhaps as a reaction to his resignation from the company. Originally, he was a chauvinistic husband. His father, or my father for that matter, was also. I grew up in the countryside of the Midwest, and it was common for my friends to be their wife. Because of this, I was strangely convinced that wives are treated like this all over the world. Nowadays, there are many people who say, chauvinistic husband is an act that tramples on a wife's morals, and I certainly feel that this is true. My only daughter has always been at odds with my stubborn husband. Now that she is an adult, she keeps in touch with me, but has insulated from my husband. Even my daughter rejects him. I am sure that I am the only one who can get along with him. If he were just a chauvinistic husband, I could accept it because I am used to it. Since his retirement, my husband has been constantly nagging me about how I'm not cleaning well or doing the housework efficiently. And to be honest, I've been feeling like he's getting in my way. When I asked him if he wanted to have lunch, he replied, "Something simple will do." So I served him simple noodles. He would get angry at me for cutting corners. While I was cleaning the kitchen, he would say things like, "I think you haven't removed the slime from the drains." If I said I was just about to do it, I could see that my husband would definitely be unfaithful, so I kept quiet. When I argued with him, he seemed to think that he could just lose his temper, and he would get angry recklessly. If that were all, I would have left him alone. But my husband, who has recently lost control of his anger due to his age, sometimes throws a cup at me, so I did my best not to argue with him. I guess he used to get angry at his subordinates at work with a smug look on his face, and I guess that is where he used to release some of his stress. Now that that's gone, I feel like everything is pointed at me. Sigh. One day, when the topic of mature divorce on TV was hitting me so hard that I couldn't think of it as someone else's problem, I was shopping when I collided with a bicycle and fell, breaking my knee and forcing me to undergo surgery. My husband, who was next to me at the time of the accident, looked down at me coldly, saying I was in pain, "You're exaggerating," and quickly went home. Even when an ambulance was arranged through the goodwill of a passerby and I was admitted to the hospital, my husband packed the minimum amount of luggage and documents together and threw them at the reception desk, as if it were a bother, and did not even accompany me to the surgery. The day after the surgery,
What are you going to do about the house?
when my husband finally came to visit me and asked me that, I involuntarily replied, What? What? I was in the hospital, so there was nothing I could do about the house, but what did this crazy husband have to say?
So it's about the house. I had no choice. I did it. But what are you going to do now?
Can't you just do it yourself until my leg is completely healed? You're not a baby." Frustrated by the stress of the hospital stay, I unintentionally told my husband how I really felt. Naturally, my husband was furious. He was in a frenzy in the hospital room, brandishing his own theory that a wife who doesn't do housework is lazy and that I was not prepared enough. The nurses immediately rushed in and snatched my husband out of the room, but needless to say, I was looked at coldly from other patients of the same room. On the other hand, there were others who sympathized with me, saying, "It's hard having a husband with a rough temperament." I have it too. My friends have passed away or live far away, so I have no one to talk to about what my relationship with my husband will be like after retirement. The hospitalization was a disaster, but it was great to have someone to talk to about my family's problems and learn about other families. It also allowed me to be objective about how crazy my husband was. I was in the hospital for about 3 months and did rehabilitation every day, but I didn't recover as well as I would have liked and was discharged from the hospital in a wheelchair. Thanks to the fact that I talked about my husband's complaints with my roommates in the hospital, I was mentally refreshed as if I had lost all possessions compared to before he was hospitalized. My husband has not seen me at all since the commotion in my hospital room, partly because of the visitation restrictions imposed by COVID-19. We only exchanged emails about fabric softener second on the shelf and the bare minimum. But it seems that he was able to live a decent life on his own. I'm sure my husband is not all bad. After all, we have been together for over 40 years. I should not give up on him just because he is getting older and angrier, but I should be a forgiving wife who can let bygones be bygones. I was trying to change my mind, but the day I left the hospital, despite my having told him, he did not come to pick me up. I was not accustomed to using a wheelchair, and it would have been impossible for me to return home by myself after taking the train and bus. I had no choice but to call a care taxi by myself, and when I returned home, as soon as I unlocked the front door, my husband rushed in and yelled, "Why did you come home? I told you I'm leaving the hospital today. Why didn't you pick me up?" I was shocked. How can you say that after making me do all the housework for months? Don't you have anything to apologize for? What? How can you talk to me like that? I was in the hospital and it was hard for me too. We're both getting old. You could at least support me at a time like this.
No,
I was stunned by my husband's unhesitating rejection.
I heard at the hospital that you are now in a wheelchair. I don't want to take care of a defective person. Divorce me because I can take care of you. I want to be free. I'd rather live on my own than live with the burden of an old woman like you who has been doing the housework for decades and can't do it well, and on top of that, has a bad leg.
I was stunned to hear these complaints about me coming out one after another, and I wondered if that was how he felt. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I had believed that my husband's character had become distorted after retirement, but that his roots were still the same, and that after 40 years together, we had feelings for each other. It is true that the words mature divorce were flickering in my mind, but I was thinking that I would not choose that path simply because I had a longing for a free woman. Because, you know, there have been fights where I fought, "I'm breaking up with you." But we have always managed to get along well with each other. We had a good track record, and I was sure that we would continue to do so in the future. "Are you sure? You'll regret it." My husband answered, "Absolutely not." "Yes, I will." "Okay, let's get a divorce. I'll be out of your house by the end of the day, but since you insisted, can you help me pack my things?"
That's nothing. You're going to be gone.
Seeing my husband smiling with satisfaction, I almost cried a little, but I held back. Oh my God. My marriage had been such a disappointment. It was a very empty story to think that it would end with a short exchange of divorce me and I understand. I divorced my husband as I had declared and spent my days in rehabilitation. The rehabilitation was tougher than I had imagined, but the doctors were kind and I made many friends who were around the same age as me, so I was able to continue to enjoy it. Then one day, I received a call on my cell phone from my ex-husband. It had been several months since the divorce, but my belongings were still at the house. He asked me to come and pick them up. As I thought it would be good to have some things thrown away, I asked him what was left, but he stubbornly refused to tell me. He also said he didn't want to mail it to me because the post office was too far away. I was afraid to go to his house, so I set a meeting place at a busy park near his house. The day of the meeting arrived. My husband was in a wheelchair. His hair was sticky, his clothes were yellowed and shabby, and he was literally in shreds waiting for me at the park. What happened? My husband did not answer my question, and he also looked at me and said, "Why aren't you in a wheelchair? It was just a broken bone to begin with. It was just a slow recovery. But as you can see, I can live with a cane now." Didn't they explain that to you at the hospital when I was admitted?
No, I mean,
You didn't listen to it because you weren't interested in my surgery, right?
that's right.
That sucks. So, what's wrong with the way you look?
I'm ashamed to ask. I beg you, remarry me.
For the second time in my life, my husband proposed to me. "Why are you talking like that?" I asked, and he began to tell me the story of what had happened. Apparently, the reason he was in a wheelchair was because he had fallen off a riverbank on his bicycle and damaged his cervical vertebrae. I couldn't help but reply, "That's why I told you so much." My husband enjoys cycling on his cross bike, but he has a habit of going too fast. Even when he was younger, he fell down several times and broke his ribs. I often told him, "I know it's your hobby, but it's dangerous, so you should cut down on the speed." Of course, there was no way my husband would listen to me. As a result, he ended up in a wheelchair, which was his own fault.
The hospital told me to use a home care service, but I don't want a stranger to take care of my personal needs.
You've got to live with that.
I can't. That's why I want to remarry you. As you can see, I can even take a bath or do my laundry right now. I can't stand it anymore. Help me.
You came here without even taking a bath. You think anyone would accept such a messy proposal when you're just being selfish? First of all, you thought I was going to be in a wheelchair. So how could you even think of remarrying me to take care of me? Of course, it's impossible.
I don't have anyone to rely on anymore. Living with a cane is easier than being in a wheelchair.
No, what you are saying is too much. He is a man who usually did nothing, so it is natural for him to ask someone to do something for him. Absolutely not. I don't want to remarry because you are too much trouble. I want to be free. Do you understand? When I refused his proposal as if I were replying to what he had said to me at the time of our divorce, he asked me, "Are you serious?" To me, your proposal was more like Are you serious? You're being so shameless audacity. I replied with a smile. Think again. You're abandoning me in this state. My husband shouted. It's not very nice to talk about abandoning someone. No one would want to marry someone who is so brazen and impudent as to rely on his ex-wife. Or even me, a stranger, in such a state. You were the one who gave up on me in the first place, weren't you? The accident and your current condition are all your own fault. You can go on living the rest of your life with flattened hair and shabby clothes and not bathing. After saying all the things he had really meant, which he had not said even during the divorce, I told him I was right. You ended up regretting what I said. Well, at the time of the divorce, I thought he has taken for granted that he has been jerking people around for years. So even if living alone seems easy now, the day will definitely come when he gets sick of it. I never thought it would turn out like this.
I'll give up on you and take care of my daughter.
Daughter's place. Isn't that too much to ask?
What?
She is already living with me. I mean, she and her husband hate you, and you think you can rely on her now. He stood there stunned at my words. It seemed he really wanted to rely on his daughter. I wonder if he had lost his mind because he fell on his bicycle. Amen. Well, I guess there really is no one else to rely on. Why didn't he just honestly ask for home care? By the way, there are 3 reasons why my husband was hated by our only daughter. The first is that he was too much chauvinistic. He would have tried to carry alcohol to our daughter while we were eating, but she said, "I'm not your slave." She was pissed off and hated him. Second, he often introduced men to my daughter in order to marry one of her own men. Of course, I stopped him, but he often brought his subordinates to our house for dinner, saying that he did not intend to introduce them. My daughter couldn't stand the atmosphere of what was apparently an arranged marriage, and she snapped. Third, when my daughter was getting married, my husband heard that one of my SIL siblings has a crippled leg. He vehemently opposed the marriage, said, "You're going to let my daughter take care of." The SIL declared that he had no such plans and that he would not let her do so, but my husband did not believe him. My husband originally wanted my daughter to marry a good man. I understand his concern for his daughter. However, he was not only worried about his daughter and opposed to the marriage, but he was also not knowing his siblings well. He denied their physical problems and spat morally questionable words at them. If I were to reproduce those words here, it would be the kind of statement that would cause me to go down in flames at once. I could understand my husband's feelings, but even if he had said, "I was too worried about my daughter in my own way," there was no way my daughter would understand his true feelings after he had cursed so viciously. My daughter married him as if they were eloping. I only was not opposed to the marriage, so we kept in touch after that. But as I said before, she has insulated from my husband. There was absolutely no room for my husband to live with my daughter and her husband in that house. After all, their married life is going well, and my daughter is not taking care of that person at all and is living comfortably as a full-time housewife thanks to her husband, who is a high-class man. I would say their marriage was a good decision. I rather feel sorry for my Sil, because now I am the one who is relying on her, since I am divorced and have nowhere to go. However, I was happy to hear my Sil say, "I love your pumpkin pie, so please make it again when you get well." And I felt that I could live with them after getting well. When I told him about our current situation, my husband said, "Then what should I do?" "Well, you're not a baby, so why don't you figure it out for yourself?"
Oh, no.
"I have my daughter waiting in the car, so I should be back by now. Take care." With that, I left. A woman walking relying on a cane and a man in a wheelchair, so my husband could have caught up with me if he tried, but he didn't come after me. I remember him just being stunned and looking down. Afterwards,
I didn't give you what you left me that day, so I need to see you again.
my husband contacted me again. But my husband was empty-handed that day, so I assumed that he had not forgotten anything and did not accept his invitation. Because it seems that my husband requested a helper determinedly. When he told the helper to do this or that, just as he had done to me, the helper lost her temper and abused him with all kinds of foul language. Of course, the helper was punished and stopped coming to my husband, but my husband seems to have been completely traumatized by this incident, and now he has become suspicious of people. It seems that people who are usually so bossy are weak once they are broken. The current helper seems to be kind, but my husband is still scared and wants me to come back. I'm not going to play into their hands. On the other hand, my legs are much better and I can walk as smoothly as before the injury, but I can still go for a walk. I have heard that if they do not walk, the condition of their legs will worsen. So every sunny day I go for a walk with my daughter and grandchildren. Sometimes my daughter and Sil drive us to a nearby field where there is little slope, and we often have a picnic together. I thought I would leave this house when I could walk, but my daughter and Sil told me that the children miss me, and if I didn't mind, they could stay with me, so I decided to stay. Unlike my husband, my Sil does his own thing and helps my daughter with the housework. He also takes the initiative to support me. He is a really good man. Thanks to my divorce from my husband, I am happy to be surrounded by such a wonderful family. Thank you. It serves him right. Oh my.